my experiences with organizing, especially in tech for younger children, and what that taught me broadly about technology and this entire industry of like hackathons and how we can broadly make tech and STEAM a more equitable space. So just as a quick caveat and sort of roadmap for this presentation, this advice is all based on my own experiences and kind of what worked for me, so you probably need to modify it to best suit your own events or organizations or whatever. And I broadly categorized this presentation into leadership, community, and diversity. So starting with leadership, in tech, we have this term called MVP, which is minimum viable product. And so when you're trying to think, like just the very beginning with your team about, okay, what do we want out of this event? Really try to formulate ideas in terms of your MVP. What, at the absolute bare minimum, is your aesthetic goal in terms of, okay, what venue do we have? What sponsors do we have? What does the event look and feel and sound like when your participants walk in? But also abstract in terms of what intellectual takeaways do you have? What workshops are you providing? What friendships are you facilitating? So you really want to think about these fundamental kind of aspects of organizing in any kind of event, whether it's tech or any other part of organizing at all. But really find your bare minimum and keep that kind of as your guiding light as you go about actually making it a reality. Here, all of your goals and ideas need to be focused on your ultimate mission. And as you're doing that, it's also very helpful to use the SMART acronym, which is just specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely, or time-bound, I think some people say. So really just making sure that your goals are really specific and not just something kind of vague and floaty, but something that you're actually sticking to a deadline and actually making a system that creates makes it actually achievable. And that's really where part 2 comes in, which is systems. So with systems, I feel like especially with youth, you kind of have this unspoken need to be super fancy and have these different Asana boards and Trello boards and this and that, but really just stick to the basics and make full use of them. So for all the work that we did in Yuva Tech, we just had one group chat, one kind of shared sheet for doing tasks management, and we had a shared Google Drive for putting all of our different files and as we went along, curriculum or whatever we had to create, right? So once you have these kind of 3 basics, a group chat, task management, and a shared drive, just make full use of them and customize them, of course, to your own team's needs. And finally, when it comes to teams, it's really important to really view your team like a puzzle, right? So in order to have a successful event, you need all the pieces of the puzzle. But as an individual, you only have certain pieces. So it's important to find people who aren't all the same, who don't all have the exact same strengths and the exact same weaknesses, but really having a diverse range of skills, but a really clear and united goal and vision for what you want to have as your final product. That's really what matters. And so here also it's helpful to invest in team building. So for example, I had a core team just for my main event of 2 other event managers. So one of them was focused on logistics and one was focused on outreach. And so they were both in 2 different schools, 2 different grades, 2 different parts of Georgia. So we invested time from the very beginning in team building, getting them acclimated, because ultimately the culture that you build in your team is really crucial to your efficiency later on. And honestly, even if you get your work done, how your team members feel and their results that they feel and how they feel they've improved. Because as a leader, you have a responsibility not only to your attendees, but also to your fellow team members to facilitate their growth, provide them opportunities to also improve in leadership skills. So moving on to community, it's really important to focus on the specifics of your community. So especially with hackathons, it's mainly kind of a collegiate-oriented environment. There's a lot of advice online, like, oh, advertise in your college's CS class or whatever. And obviously that didn't apply to, a group of elementary schoolers. So you want to really think about these, more broad statements and advice and really make them specific to your community's needs and perspective. So in this case, since I'm not part of my target audience, right, I'm out of that age range, I reached out directly because I can't really assume what the needs and perspectives of 10-year-olds are, but I need to know what these kind of little details that end up making a world of difference. Once I acknowledge these and get them from reaching out, I then went to the next part, which is more about testing. So here, we had kind of a unique situation where we were able to have basically testing or pilot sessions. And so we would do little rehearsal runs of actual workshop material or curriculum, lesson plans or whatever it is. And we'd have like a smaller group just to get better feedback and really take note of not only their, intentional feedback when you prompt them for it, but also their overall response, in terms of pacing. Are you going too fast, or is the content kind of like going right over their head? Just overall, how they appear to be receiving the information. And once you note these things, it'll really help overall in just adding the little touches, the little bits of, maybe just providing a little break between sessions to give them time to sort of like zone out and have fun and just clear their brains for a second. Things like that. Like, it wouldn't come naturally to me to like work a 5-minute break into a 30-minute session, because that seems relatively short for like a high schooler. But for, antsy little kids, that 5-minute break can be really helpful in ensuring that they're engaged and ready for the next part of that 30-minute work session, and that they're not kind of just tired and not really absorbing the information. So overall, these little specific things can really be what sets your event apart and what makes your impact really exceptional. And finally, as you're learning about community, you want to focus on the 3 E's. So first, we have engaged. So you want to make sure, obviously, and you can kind of tell this, but your students need to be, or participants need to be engaged. They should be interested by what you're teaching them, and really just not just like, oh my God, like whatever, AI is so cool, or ML is so cool, but really understanding what's happening and being engaged by this like newfound knowledge. Secondly, they want to be empowered and not advised. So the key difference here is that being empowered is about active learning and about active application of what they're being taught, whereas advised is just sort of like sitting in the back seat while the instructor kind of like blows through all this like, information on a PPT or whatever it is. They're not really doing anything about it. It's basically like active learning, passive learning. You want to emphasize active application, whether it's through worksheets or collaboration or whatever it is. Especially in tech, it's crucial to make sure that they're actually putting pen to paper or finger to keyboard and making something happen. Finally, educated. You want to make sure that people are actually absorbing what you're putting at them, and so when they leave, they've been educated. They now know really valuable and relevant skills, whether it be technical skills like how to program, whatever feature in whatever language, or just something new that's a soft skill, like how to collaborate with someone you've never met before, or how to work with a corporate mentor, or whatever it is. So they have to leave having gained knowledge in some capacity. So, and once you have these 3 E's kind of guiding everything you do in your event, you can really help guarantee or at least measure the level of impact that you've had. Finally, we come to diversity. So here, you have to really figure out what is your specialty, what makes you and your event stand out. So in terms of hackathons, especially if you look at the national and international scale, there is a lot of activity happening. So it's really important to find that one little X factor that makes you different and really stick to it. So for example, this would be a theme for submissions, or maybe a specific audience or technology that you kind of promote or encourage your participants to use. And in our case, we had a whole theme of tech for social good. In fact, our actual name, which is Yuva Tech, is based on the Latin word that means help and the word tech. So once you have this theme in mind, you can basically work on consistency. So this theme should be applied to literally everything in your event, from finding speakers who have experience in it to organizing workshops where you kind of teach more details or different aspects of this theme. And in our case, we even built original curriculum to really bridge the gap between our overall theme and the resources we had in terms of Major League Hacking Python curriculum, which was very technical. And we need to figure out how to connect this technical skill to our goal of adding that social good element to our overall theme. So here we created an ideation curriculum to really go between literally just looking for issues in your community and brain dumping them onto a sheet of paper to actually building like a proper product flow and product plan and presenting it to your peers. And this sense of continuity is really helpful because it not only allows for a better experience and more kind of cohesive experience for your participants, but also a much more focused planning experience for you. You're not getting sidetracked by other opportunities or other partners. You have a clear vision of where you want to go, and that really makes sure that you're not wasting time on irrelevant pursuits. Finally, team perspectives on whatever thing you're organizing is really critical. Representation is of the utmost importance. This is not only in terms of accessibility, so maybe certain facilities are needed or having certain aids available is really important, obviously. Because overall, and this comes to my second point of equitable outreach, you want to make sure that whatever you're doing, doesn't matter whether it's in tech or science or just overall, you don't want to be exacerbating the existing barrier to access and opportunity in education that already exists in almost every single field, right? So this often manifests itself as like, it's a pretty, pretty heavy concept, but a really practical way you can apply it is just in terms of looking at your community. Okay, like what is convenient? So maybe the local middle school is convenient. They have a really solid team or program for whatever STEM subject, and that's great. So they're a convenient, probably surefire way to get people to come to your event. However, that isn't really going beyond. You really need to go beyond what may seem convenient or easy or obvious and get to that after school program that may be in a different county, a different school district entirely, but maybe they're a Title I school or they've been struggling with getting funding for their STEM programs or whatever it is. Because honestly, these schools, these kids, these people who may not have the same level of access and opportunity given to them in STEM are the people who can really benefit from tech the most and really be empowered by it the most. So you really want to make sure you're going beyond what may seem obvious to get to the people who need what you're providing more than anyone else. So ultimately, when you combine leadership, community, and diversity, you get events that truly spark progress. And so I hope my presentation inspired you guys to go into your communities and find a way to help, maybe through tech, maybe something else, but just overall going beyond what may seem obvious and really making an impact through leadership, community, and diversity. If you ever want to reach out, ask any questions, get in contact, my information is on the screen, as well as the information for my organization, Tech. So that's it. Thank you.